1982 was an enormous year. You had Joan Jett's I Love Rock and Roll and Survivor's Eye of the Tiger, which was the theme from Rocky III, at the top of the Billboard music charts. You had the timeless release of E.T. by Steven Spielberg, which smashed all kinds of box office records. In the technological realm, Commodore was trying to do the same thing, release something epic. Their answer to that was the Commodore 64 system. The Commodore 64 system allowed people to have a computer in their home that they could program and learn how to use. Many programmers today got started on a Commodore 64 system. In order to understand how we got to the point of the Commodore 64 system, we need to backtrack to 1976. In 1976, Commodore was a struggling company. Jack Tramiel made a deal with Commodore to sell his shares back to them, but on the condition that if what he did with that money helped Commodore, they would give him back some of his shares. So Tramiel went and bought MOS Technologies. MOS is short for Metal Oxidized Semiconductor. MOS Technologies was a manufacturer in chips and microprocessors. So what that purchase did was give Commodore the inside track that it needed to reasonably priced microprocessors. Fast forward to January 1981. The engineers at MOS Technologies were getting bored of building the same processors and chips on a regular basis. So they decided to band together and create state-of-the-art video and audio cards in hopes of developing the next great video game. Later in November, Jack Tramiel tasked these same engineers with building a computer system. He wanted it to be ready in 6 weeks. Just 6 weeks to design and develop an entire system for the Consumer Electronics Show in mid-January. He decided against using these audio and video chips that the engineers had designed. At the winter 1982 Consumer Electronics Show, Commodore stole the spotlight. Their competitors had not come out with any new systems, so they were going up with their brand new shiny Commodore 64 system against stuff that people already knew was there. So when people saw the Commodore 64, they were immediately drawn to it. It was newer, it was faster, it had more capabilities, and more importantly, it was cheaper than any of the other computer systems out at the time. At a price point of $595, was considerably less than the over $1,000 systems currently on the market. Here's a picture of the Commodore 64 computer system. And here's a picture of the boot up screen. By August 1982, production was in full effect. Commodore 64 was flying off shelves. Retailers had a hard time keeping them in stock. The $595 price tag was still amazing for what it offered. And what it offered was one of the easiest computers to program on. Lots of programmers today started out on Commodore 64 systems. The language that was distributed with the Commodore 64 was BASIC. BASIC was a Microsoft language that was written by Microsoft and Bill Gates to sell, and Jack Tramiel decided he wanted to buy a perpetual license, basically giving them the right to do whatever they wanted with the language. So he bought a perpetual license from Microsoft for $25,000 and was able to then distribute BASIC with the Commodore 64. This is a huge, huge decision in the realm of computing, home computing, and the development of programmers, because this gave now anyone who bought a Commodore 64 a language to be able to try to figure out and write programs in. This developed an entire generation of programmers. In conclusion, I chose the Commodore 64 for the topic of this project because of its critical piece in computing history. It was easy to use, it was easy to program, and it was inexpensive compared to the competition. That, while it was bundled with the basic programming language, gave people like you and me an opportunity to learn about computers and to become programmers. that was what the world needed to get to where we are today. Thank you.